Hi everyone. Welcome to the second lesson on making your initial sounds on the head joint. Just a few things to try to recap before we continue. Remember that the concept of playing the flute, your air blows straight across. And remember, our way to check that is doing this with your mouth in a who shape. Next, remember that this is the position for your head joint. It goes between your chin and your lower lip. Remember also how important it is to align your flute so that it's centered on your lip. The air must go from the lip hole across the flute hole, and the goal is to make the lip hole as close to this size in width as possible. And a few more things to review. First of all, remember that your lips make a who shape. Everybody say it with me. The second thing is that we blow across the hole, not down into it. This is just a review. The next thing is to remember that your lips should be smooth and not wrinkled. When you pick up your head joint, we want the pink part of your lip should be as smooth as possible, not that just looks painful, doesn't it? And it doesn't work very well. And the next thing is that the hole needs to be centered on the lip. I drew you a picture in the last lesson of what happens if your flute is a little bit off center. Two new things that we did not talk about last time. You need to make sure that you always take deep breaths. Now this, when I say big breaths or deep breaths, I want you to think of when you're swimming and you're trying to go underwater for a long time. You're going to take a deep breath and then blow. Don't take it so deep that you feel like you're going to pass out, but you want to fill up your lungs every time you take a breath. We'll talk more about that in depth a little bit later. And then the last thing, which is also a new thing for today, is you do not want to puff out your cheeks. You want to keep your cheeks flat and not go. I'll show you what I mean. Here is keeping our cheeks normal or not puffed. And here's what happens if I puff my cheeks. It's much, much harder to control that way. So you might feel like you're doing that at first. All you have to do is call your attention to it and be aware, and then make an effort to keep your cheeks from puffing out. Now you can walk around the house going, and believe it or not, it will help if you do that in all of your spare time. Added bonus, if you can whistle, it's sort of the same idea as playing the flute. Notice you can't really puff your cheeks and whistle very well. At least I can't. Boy, I can't do that at all. So those are some things to remember from last time and a few new things. Okay, it's time to talk about breathing a little bit. Notice I have stepped back considerably from the camera, and that is so you can really see how big your lungs are and how well you need to use them. So I want you all to take your hands and find the bottom of your rib cage. Like really feel around. See if you can feel about your lowest two ribs. When you feel like you've got a good grip, I want you to let out all your air and take a huge breath. And let it out. Good. And now I'm going to tell you, we're going to do it again. I'm going to tell you what to watch for and pay attention to this time. Whenever you breathe in on flute, you should think of making an ah syllable, A-H, or even A-W, ah. And you definitely want to avoid or anything strange like that. So with your mouth in an ah shape, we're going to take another breath in just a minute. This time, I want you to think of your hands and your rib cage expanding three-dimensionally, like a balloon. If you were to blow up a balloon, it would expand in all directions. I'll show you again, like this. I want you to concentrate on three specific things. You want to take such a deep breath that your hands get pushed out. You also want to feel your fingers being pushed forward. And if you're really doing it correctly, I want you to see if you can get your thumbs to press back. So all three of those directions, we want a 3D breathing experience. And that is because your lungs are huge. They're much bigger than we usually think they are. They really do go from all the way up here to all the way down here. You want to use the whole lung. You want to get all your air to the bottom of each lung, and you can tell whether or not you're doing that by doing this breathing exercise. So let's try it again. Get your hands in place. Let out all of your air. Now with your mouth in an ah shape, deep, slow breath. I don't know about you, let it out, but I can feel my hands really expanding in 3 different directions. This is pretty important for flute. Everything that we do on the flute depends on breathing correctly and blowing correctly. So it might be fun for you to pause the video and practice this a few times. However, I wouldn't recommend doing it more than 3 times because then you might start to get lightheaded and I don't want you to pass out. So that is my quick version of a lesson on deep breathing. Time to take it to the next level a little bit. I'm going to give you some more exercises and one more thing to think about if you're having trouble making a good sound. When you put your flute up, you may find, if you look in the mirror, that you're going like this. You might still be able to make a sound. It's just a little bit harder. You may also find that you're going this way. So the magic word here is parallel. You want to make sure your lips are always parallel to your flute. And you can hear that that's what gives us the best sound quality. So what we're going to do right now is a little exercise. Once you get your flute positioned, we're going to do 4 short notes and 1 long note. And this is just to practice getting our air moving better and faster. Before you do this, don't forget, take a deep, deep breath like we talked about a minute ago. Get your position. I'll count to 4 and we're going to do 4 shorts and a long. Deep breath. Now you can make the long one as long as you want to. Which was harder for you? Was it making the short notes or was it making the long notes? Different kids have different experiences. So we're going to try the same thing now again with the end covered. Now when we cover the end, it does make a lower sound. And for lower sounds, we need generally less air. So we're going to blow a little bit softer. Put your flute up. Make sure you're positioned. And here we go. I'm going to count to 4. Deep breath. Deep breath. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So how did you do? I hope that went well for you. Now sometimes you're going to find some days you're going to make a great high sound and a fuzzy low sound. Some days it just won't work. Some days may be the opposite. A clear low sound and a fuzzy high sound. That is normal for a beginner. Eventually you will be able to get to the point that both your lows and your highs are good. Now I'm going to take a second to give you one more breathing exercise to test whether or not you're really blowing hard enough. Here is a very simple exercise that I do with all of my students. And it's a great way to check whether or not you're really using your full blowing potential. Get a piece of paper, any kind of paper. This one's lined, but you can use computer paper, but make sure it's about this size. When you have your paper, we are going to put the paper at arm's length. That means you're really going to straighten out your arm. Now your goal is to get the paper to move up as much as you can when you blow. And we're going to blow at the bottom of the paper because that's the way to get it to go up the furthest. So here we go. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm not going to make a flute embouchure. I am just going to make a normal blowing mouth position like this. So here we go. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to do that again. You'll notice I got my paper up pretty far. The goal is to get it as close to parallel to the ground as you possibly can. Parallel seems to be a key word with flute, doesn't it? If you can do that, that means you're really blowing hard enough. And if you can't, try to figure out why. Try to figure out, is your mouth preventing you to? Is it too tight? Or is it your lungs not filling up? It could be a number of things, but that is a good tool to use anytime you're not sure if you're blowing hard enough. So when you feel you're ready to take it to the next level, and when you feel like you're getting a pretty consistent sound just by lifting up the head joint and doing this, here are some exercises that you can practice to get more comfortable and to get you just moving your air and practicing different ways to play the flute before we put it together. These 3 exercises will help tremendously once we put the flute together. So the first one we already talked about briefly, and I'm going to call it the 5-note exercise. And that is where we do 4 short notes and 1 long note. We can do this with the flute uncovered, and we can also do it covered. Remember that uncovered is a higher sound. Let's practice this together. I'm going to do this about 4 times. Feel free to pause and go back in the video as many times as you need to practice with me. We're going to do it 4 times. Deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 more. Now rest for a minute, and we are going to do the same thing with the end covered. Take a normal deep breath. Please don't go on if you feel dizzy. Please wait a minute until you feel back to normal again. Remember, we're going to blow softer when the end is covered because it's a lower note. And when you're ready, take your time, get your position, and here we go. Deep breath and then count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good job. Now, one other troubleshooting thing I forgot to mention is head angle. We talked about flute angle a little bit like this, but you also want to make sure that your head angle is relatively straight. We talked about keeping your chin parallel to the ground or as close as possible. We also want to make sure that your head is not tilting drastically one way or the other. That will not only hurt your neck over time, but it will make it harder to get a good sound. So here I am with my head as straight as I can. You may find you're a little tilted one way or the other, but please try not to go very far. This is too much. Even though miraculously I got a sound that way, I'm not sure how. This is also too much. Again, if you do that, you lose the parallel nature of your lips to your lip plate. So remember, head straight, chin parallel, and lips parallel to the lip plate. The next exercise on our list is called long tones, and this is as easy as it sounds. You should start with whichever way is easier for you, covered or uncovered. And the idea of this exercise is you're going to take a very, very deep breath, and you're going to blow for as many seconds as you can. So you can have an adult help you by setting a timer of some kind. I'm going to use my stopwatch feature on my phone, or you can count in your head. Try to think in seconds if you don't have a second hand on a clock. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Now your goal is to get to 3 seconds. If you can't do it right away, again, it's okay, but we want to work towards getting to 3 seconds and beyond. Now, honestly, I have not done a long tone check for myself in a while, so this should be interesting. I'm not sure how many seconds I can do it, but I'm going to try. I'm going to hit the timer on my smartphone and I'm going to start blowing. If it gets ridiculous, I'll stop. Okay, well today I got to 27 seconds. I have had some students in the past get to 9 or 10 seconds as beginners, but again, your goal is to get to 3 seconds. And if you can do that, that means you're using your air well. Remember to always take deep breaths. Your last exercise on this list is called back and forth. And this is where we start developing flexibility on the flute. So you are going to alternate between covering the end and uncovering. Please keep your hand nearby. Don't take it way far away, but keep it nearby and try to move in a controlled way. And I'll show you what this one's going to look like and sound like. Make sure you have a good grip with your left hand so you don't drop your flute. So I want you to try this with me a few times. Put your flute up again, take your time. I think it's easier to start with your hand on the flute, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to do it about 4 times, 4 lows, 4 highs. 1, 2, ready, go. And that's where we start noticing that our lips feel a little bit different for the low and for the high, and that we start noticing that we blow a little softer for the low and a little bit harder for the high. This is the first step in learning how we change the air and change the lips when we play the flute. I'm going to give you one more exercise that I forgot to write down, but this one's just for fun. This one I call train whistle. And what you're going to do is you're going to just blow across, and you're going to put your finger just a little bit into the end of the flute, and it makes a fun sound like this. That is a just for fun. I hope you did well today. If not, please again be patient and keep practicing. Practicing is really the key. You should try to play your flute for as many minutes a day as you can stand. It could be 10, 15, 20, or 30. And practice really does make perfect over time. The more you practice, the better you will be. At our next lesson, we're going to go over all of these exercises that we talked about today, and then we will work on putting the whole flute together and making our first 3 notes, which will be the notes B, A, and G. So I look forward to seeing you at your next lesson, and have a good day. Bye-bye.